Take me out to the ball game.
Chicago Cubs baseball is on the air from Wrigley Field in Chicago.
Welcome to Northrop on the Northside. I'm Chris Northrop for Baseball Banter Broadcast. Today we'll be talking about the restructuring of the Marquee Sports Network. But first, let me introduce myself. Historically, I'm a Cub fan. I was born and raised about 3 hours east of Chicago. As you know, Indiana doesn't have a professional baseball team. We were fans of the Cubs, some of the Reds, the Tigers, the White Sox, the Indians, so on and so forth. My family were Cub fans. I remember the summers, my grandfather sitting with his transistor radio practically up his ear, trying to hear the Cub games over the screams of his grandchildren. Really, Cubs baseball was the music of my childhood, the background music to my childhood. When I became an adult, however, a different story unfolded. I met a Yankee fan at just the right time when they were going through their championship runs, and consequently, after years of sitting beside him on the couch cheering and jeering at the Yankees, I became a Yankee fan, and I've been writing, talking, and podcasting about the Yankees for about 8 years now. I'm rediscovering my Cub fandom more than the casual fan, more than just catching the scores every day and trying to keep up with the current players, more than listening to Ian Happ's The Compound, which I love, by the way. I'm sure everyone loves that as well. So I'm going to try not to suck. As you know, that was the mantra of the Cubs when they made their 2016 World Series run. Javi Baez walked into Joe Madden's office on the first day of the season of spring training and said, "What can I do to get better?" And Madden told him, "Try not to suck." And consequently, the t-shirts, the merch, and the attitude. The Cubs have an attitude about winning, and that's what I love. So I'm going to be talking about the Cubs, and let's get into our first topic of our first episode, and that is the restructuring of the regional sports network they co-own with Sinclair broadcast group Marquee Network. On Monday, they fired the GM and the director of digital content. The network will now be run by a Cubs COO. His name is Colin Faulkner. He will oversee game coverage, production, and on-air talent. My research says that he has not done these things before, so it's going to be an interesting ride. The financials were plummeting from about $90 million early on in the with Marquee Sports Network, dwindling down to about $15 million currently. Will the Cubs eventually phase out Marquee? There seems to be some dispute about this. Explore other options. MLB wants to centralize broadcasting and streaming rights of as many teams as they can. The Cubs could join this effort. They could merge with CHSN, which is the regional sports network for the Bulls, Blackhawks, and White Sox. Fans basically, they want a better product in the Marquee Network to begin with. They were disgruntled with the Marquee Network as far as the Cubs coverage. There was barely any Cubs coverage, just game time, very little otherwise. The fishing and the reporters that I listened to, Locked On Cubs, for example, complained about the fishing programs and that sort of thing that you find when you have a regional sports network that doesn't have a club event or a club, programming. Chicago Sun-Times reporter Paul Sullivan asked the burning question of the day: will Marquee Sports Network's cost-cutting affect the Chicago Cubs' off-season plans? Now, he says no, that the cost-cutting wouldn't buy a middle of the, pack reliever. However, Locked On Cubs says, yes, it'll have an impact on baseball spending. The TV deal was part of the baseball budget. Cubs are the number 3 market in the country. Fans complain about paying $25 a month as it is for the sparse content and the game coverage. When you operate your franchise by subscription, you have to put a good product on the field. And the cuts, they cause Cub fans to panic. They want to see that product. They're close. They were close this year. They won 92 games. They went into the postseason. They want to not only compete with, they want to beat the Brewers. I don't think that they're happy with the way the reporters and the broadcasters are not free to speak their minds. There's no criticizing of the organization. Apparently, in one instance, while taping the show, the reporters, the taping was stopped, and in the middle, when reporters were mildly criticizing Judd Hoyer, who's the president of Cubs baseball, and they were instructed to change the topic, and when taping resumed, they had in fact changed the topic. The bottom line is, Marquee does well, Cubs have more revenue to put on the field. Fans fear the Cubs will now tighten up their belts and not pursue the high-dollar free agents. However, they did just bring on a high-dollar reliever in Phil Maton, 2 years, $14.5 million. Cubs want Kyle Tucker back. It's just anybody's guess how the restructuring at Marquee will affect baseball operations. The Cubs are afraid that the Cub fans are afraid that from this point on, the Cubs will be looking for a deal, that they won't go for the high dollar free agents. From what I read, the Cubs are not expected to make any trades either. They're not expected to be active, at least in the trade market. They're expected to, do as most teams do and try to find the needle in a haystack, the next phenom that comes along. So fans want the ownership to push a little closer, spend like for a Dylan Cease, who will be a difference maker, push them over the top, beat the Brewers. I think that the two go hand in hand. The Cubs need a network for game coverage. The Yes Network, which the Yankees have, I think is an excellent example of a regional sports network. They have interesting programming. They have top-notch reporters in their pre- and post-game shows. The Cubs could take a lot of initiative with Marquee Sports Network, but the consensus opinion is not so much that they will. Well, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it, and I look forward to speaking to you throughout the season and rediscovering my Cub fandom. Tell me how you became a Cub fan.